Well, Athi Mtongana joins us live from Parliament this afternoon. Athi, and I think there was some background noise when you and I were testing off air, and that is obviously because of the construction that's taking place to repair the part of the parliamentary precinct that was gutted by a fire. So again, it's a situation where we're not actually having this first sitting in Parliament, so to speak, but at the ICC.
Definitely, Michelle. I'm assured that you definitely did hear the background noise here at the parliamentary precinct. Parliament has held briefings to update members of the media, of course, to also make South Africans aware of how far they are in terms of the rebuilding process, and they'll certainly not be in time for that first sitting of the National Assembly. Hence, the confirmation that the first sitting of the National Assembly will take place at the Cape Town International Convention Center. So we are looking forward to that. The date is yet to be determined. We know that this week the Chief Justice will be handing over the list to the Secretary to Parliament. Now the ball is in the hands of Parliament insofar as the process is right after the declaration of the 7th democratic elections. Now let's speak about the 7th Parliament. I'm joined by Sanusha Naido to talk about the makeup of this particular 7th administration. It's going to be different. First of all, for the first time in history, in democratic history, the ANC has lost its majority in the National Assembly with fewer numbers. And in that point, I just want us to talk about some of the reports, for example, that have come before the main house, where the ANC has been accused of using its majority to try and avoid taking responsibility. Let's talk about the dynamics in terms of their majority being lost.
Good day, Athi. I think it's going to be quite a dramatic thing, because for those of us who are at the Rock in the last few days, you visibly saw a shattered ANC looking at that board and realizing that they no longer are the dominant power in the political spectrum of the country. For me, Parliament has always been that actor within the body politic of the state that has been critical for this election. So with the results now official, and hoping no interdict will happen, as the MK is possibly threatening to do with all of its shenanigans, we see the ANC has 159 seats. And that means it's both in the NCOP, in the National Assembly, and that's the national ballot and the regional ballot, which means that they will not enjoy majorities in the committees. So up until now, Parliament has been under the gavel, so to speak, where they felt that opposition parties felt that the ANC could use its majority in the committees and to get through the legislation. I think one of the last pieces of legislation that President Ramaphosa signed just before this election was the National Health Insurance. Some argue that this could have been the reason why they lost the votes that they did. Others argue that, will this go forward? I don't think you're going to have that same kind of business as usual where the ANC dominates in committees. They'll have to think about which committees they're going to be in. It really opens up the space in terms of what a minority government power sharing arrangement looks like.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of talk now around coalitions. Of course, there's a lot of horse trading. We know the NEC is meeting. There are talks with regards to coalitions between the ANC and the DA. There's also talks between a coalition between the ANC, EFF and MK party. But when you look at now the ANC having lost its majority, do you think that obviously the dynamics insofar as the chairpersons of these committees and even the roles of Speaker and the chairperson of the NCOP, that is going to be a shift?
Yeah, so within these coalition talks, there's also the question of who gets Speaker of the National Assembly, and of course who will get the NCOP Speaker. And that's going to be critical, because this is where the horse trading happens. The red line's already there in terms of what are the dynamics of the non-negotiable instruments. But I think if you are negotiating this kind of deal in terms of what is a broad grand coalition, or a government of national unity, or a kind of coalition light, if you want to call it that, the smaller parties or the top four parties that may be in there, barring the MK, because the MK has made itself very known what it wants, what it doesn't want. Let's assume it's an ANC, EFF, DA, IFP coalition? What do you give the DA? What do you give the, not what you give, what will they negotiate? Because I think the ANC doesn't have that power anymore to give. So what becomes critical is who gets Speaker of the National Assembly, who gets maybe a ministerial position or a deputy ministerial position. I know markets have been very uncomfortable because the EFF has said that they have their red lines when it comes to the kind of market. But let's be also honest, the EFF has tempered itself in a lot of ways. It's become much more mature in the last couple of days, in my opinion, around the understanding of what the market or what the economic issues are. So let's not start running away and start talking about doomsday scenarios. I think all of the parties that are speaking, whatever configuration or constellation or kind of coalition you get, it has to basically be on the basis that you leave those issues of what you want to pull into this coalition and what is best for the country. Just bearing in mind that this result is not because the parties decided we're going to go this way. It's the South African people that decided this is how we voted.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Sanusha Naido, giving us the breakdown in terms of what might be expected to take place here in Parliament. Later on, Michelle will be in conversation with Moloto Motapo, who's the spokesperson to Parliament. Perhaps then he can shed light about the first sitting and the numbers that are needed to actually elect a president that will actually eventually get to pick a member or members of his cabinet. So all of these developments are very interesting because now the ball is in Parliament's court.